Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Diana Vasquez. I'm the BERDO Review Board Manager. The BERDO Review Board does not currently have an appointed chair, so I will lead us in a vote for acting chair. Does anyone want to make a nomination for acting chair?
I nominate Stephen Ellis as acting.
Yes, thank you, Board Member Lattimore. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Jacobs. On the motion to nominate Board Member Ellis as acting chair, how do you vote? Board Member Ellis.
Aye.
Board Member Jacobs.
Aye.
Board Member Lattimore.
Aye.
And Board Member Delson.
In support.
Great. I will now hand the meeting over to acting chair Ellis. And I will share my screen.
Before that happens, Councilor Clutter is here and I vote aye. Thank you.
Great. Awesome. Thank you for joining us, Councilor Coletta.
Thank you for joining us, Councilor Coletta. Good afternoon, everyone. I am calling this public hearing to order at 4:35 p.m. in accordance with the Building Emission Reduction Disclosure Ordinance regulations adopted pursuant to the Building Emissions Reduction and Disclosure Ordinance, Boston City Code Ordinance Section 7-2.2. The BERDO Review Board will hold a virtual public hearing at 4:30 on June 24th to review the following topics in regard to the reduction of greenhouse gases from building energy production and consumption so as to promote the public health and welfare of Boston residents. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this public meeting online. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the BERDO Review Board, the public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment. To do so, please raise your hand or type in the chat in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. Send your questions to staff via email at berdoreviewboard@boston.gov. For the record, I am Stephen Ellis, acting chair of the board. I will now conduct a roll call of board members. Board members, please say your name in the order that they appear on the slide.
I believe Board Member Boyd is not with us today. So I
And
think
we may
next
have
is
lost Councilor Coletta. So Stephen Ellis,
Yvette Jacobs.
Gail Lattimore.
Jack Nelson.
staff will now introduce themselves. Oh, wait a minute. One moment. I believe Councilor Coletta has rejoined us.
I'm here, everybody. I apologize. Councilor Coletta Zapata. I just recently got married, so I will be changing my last name, just as a heads up.
Congratulations. Staff
Thank
will now staff will now introduce themselves.
Aiden Callan, BERDO Program Manager.
Diana Vasquez, BERDO Review Board Manager.
Ziggy Chin, BERDO Review Board Assistant.
Here is the agenda for today's meeting. We'll start with the approval of meeting minutes. The Environment Department staff will present updates on BERDO reporting, the Equitable Emissions Investment Fund, and any administrative updates. Originally, we had a RDH training today, but we will vote on whether to continue this topic. Finally, we will adjourn. First on the agenda is to approve the previous meeting minutes from June 10th. Are there any questions or comments regarding the meeting minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the motion to approve the meeting minutes, board members in favor say aye or show your hands. Aye.
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 Board members abstain, say abstain.
Abstain.
Very well. I believe I heard 4 ayes and 1 abstain. The motion passes. For the second agenda item, we will hear from the Environment Department about updates on the BERDO reporting. Over to you, Aiden.
All right, thank you, Stephen. We can head over to the next slide here. All right, so each time I provide updates on the BERDO reporting numbers, I always say it does need context. So really appreciate the opportunity to kind of provide that additional context here. Stephen, I believe you asked a few months ago about just getting more granularity in terms of what building types are reporting to BERDO, in terms of what's the residential reporting rate, what's the commercial reporting rate, and then what's the total reporting rate by square footage. So work to put those numbers together, and we'll start out with residential, which is certainly lower compared to commercial. So on residential, by just simply looking at the number of buildings, we're at 41% have completed their reporting for this year. Some additional context there. I would note that we are still working with a few hundred Boston Housing Authority buildings to get those across the finish line. And there's 600 plus buildings that have put in for extension requests, as well as a number of others that we're working on outreach to, which I'll get into on the next slide. But if we look at the percentage in compliance by square footage, we're looking now at 62% of the total residential square footage under BERDO is currently in compliance. Those numbers are bumped up if we switch over to commercial. So 65% of the total number of buildings covered under BERDO, total number of commercial buildings are in compliance at this time. 75% of the total commercial square footage is in compliance at this time. And then we're just looking at the totals. Just looking at the number of buildings, we're at 49%. By total square footage, we're at 70%. But this final number I think is really important. 87% of the total square footage that has been covered under BERDO has been claimed. And what I mean by that is, the reporting process has been started at some point in time for 87% of the total square footage. So it may be that they claimed their buildings, started reporting, never got across the finish line. Maybe they never hired a verifier, or it could be that they reported their data 2 years ago, but failed to do so this year. So seeing that 87% engagement, I think that number better aligns with the total emissions that are engaged under BERDO. And so really just want to highlight that. But I know there's sort of a lot of numbers I'm throwing out here. So I'll take it on. Diane, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, I can provide some more clarity on what our follow-up is to bump these numbers up. So 630 of the buildings have approved extension requests for an August 15th reporting deadline. We are following up with each BERDO account holder that has yet to request an extension or yet to report through email. And the email is the primary way in which we are following up with these folks. 71% of all BERDO buildings have been claimed at some point. Again, 87% of the total square footage. That means we have contact information for these buildings. If they've been claimed, we have email addresses we can reach out to. They may have reported property management information, ownership contact information. So, we're not having to rely very heavily on sending additional letters. And each year that we are under BERDO, we see an increased engagement. We're less and less reliant on sending that mail. But we are still sending letters. The plan is to send them out by the end of this week to all non-compliant buildings that have yet to request an extension. And a few updates on some additional outreach. So I think last time I gave an update, we were planning on some door-to-door outreach. So we just started that today, and are based on our kind of initial findings, working out a plan to just really cover the whole city in terms of buildings that have yet to engage with us at all. Again, the plan here is to really, go to these buildings and just look to see if we can, take down property management contact information. Many of these buildings we've sent letters to for years, and in some cases we just don't hear anything back. And we have to make sure that these property management companies, these owners are well informed of their responsibilities to comply with this BERDO ordinance. And so, door-to-door outreach so far seems to be a successful way to gather that information. So just to provide some kind of initial findings, I think we're able to, in 4 hours, cover 25 buildings. 15 of those buildings we were able to find, take down property management contact information. And many property management companies have already engaged with us previously. They're reporting on other buildings on behalf of building owners. And so we have that contact information. In many cases, it's just a matter of us, reaching out to them and informing them that, no, this building is also covered under BERDO. Please work to complete that reporting. So, successful efforts initially, but yeah, happy to answer any questions on that, as well as any of the numbers I presented previously.
Thank you, Aidan. I will now ask each board member if they have any questions or comments. But before I get there, I just want to confirm from our counselor, how would you prefer to be called? Is it Counselor Coletta or Counselor Coletta Zapata? And I apologize if I'm pronouncing your additional last name incorrectly.
Oh, that's really thoughtful. Thank you so much. Counselor Coletta Zapata is fine.
Okay, so Counselor Coletta Zapata, do you have any questions or comments to what was just presented?
No questions, just gratitude to the staff for putting this together and for your work in getting that claimed percentage up and running, as well as sending the letters out and the door-to-door outreach. So thank you.
I second that as well. Having done door-to-door outreach myself in the past, I know it can be a bit of a stretch, but I hope you're staying cool while we have these heat waves passing through our city. If anything, I'll just make a comment that as we get closer to that August 15th extension deadline, I look forward to seeing an additional update on how things are going with respects to the extensions, the additional reporting, and in addition, the further door-to-door outreach that may have been occurring between now and then. I have no further questions or comments at this time, so now I'll pass it over to Board Member Jacobs.
No questions at the moment.
Thank you, Board Member Jacobs. Board Member Lattimore.
Yes, I agree with my fellow review board member that it's good information. Appreciate all the work that you and the staff are doing. I would ask how long you think it will take, because there is for quite a few buildings that are in the category of needing to, do door-to-door, it sounds like. And so wondering I'm glad you're getting a high percentage rate for what it sounds like 25 that you've done door-to-door for. Wondering how long you think it's going to take to get to the finish line.
Yeah, so I hope by the next meeting, we'll have some more of a concrete plan worked out. But I think what we're trying to do right now is just work with our analytics team to do sort of a route optimization, so that we can hit as many buildings as possible in the quickest way possible. So we're still working on that. But I think we're going to get a few staff members on board, and just have folks, when they're working during their remote days to go out, into the buildings that are close to them. And so it's going to be an all hands on deck effort, but just based on the quantity and the route optimization and the uncertainty as to who's going to be involved, I just don't know. I don't have a a good answer for how long it's going to take. But you know, we're really looking at just the summer to have this wrapped up. That really is the goal.
Okay, thank you. And so it's 80, you said something like 80% or so of the buildings have been claimed, even if, you know, at least claimed. So that means that there's about whatever that 19% that you're working on. Is that how to understand the figures?
Yeah, so it's really 87% of the total square footage
Well, square
that's
footage.
covered under BERDO has been claimed. So you know,
Thank you.
the number of the number of buildings that have been claimed, off the top of my head, I don't have that number. But there are, you know, a larger number of small buildings that have yet to engage with BERDO. A couple of years ago, when the threshold dropped, you know, from 35,000 square feet or more to 20,000 square feet, 35 or more units to 15 units, number of buildings under BERDO increased pretty substantially. But the total square footage covered under BERDO did not increase by quite as much. So the buildings that are not engaged with us at this time are largely the smaller buildings. They're newer to BERDO. They just we haven't been reaching out to them for as many years. And you know, they're less likely perhaps to be part of a larger network of, you know, larger ownership entity that, you know, is all well aware of their entire portfolio, you know. So I think, you know, they're definitely the smaller, trickier buildings, but you know, we have to engage them just the same. And you know, doing this door to door seems to be a good way of doing that, but it's hard to know with certainty exactly how successful it'll be.
And just one last question, how many, so about how many buildings are you trying to do door to door for? Or how many ownership entities at my building?
I will have to, if I can pull those numbers up now, I'm gonna try to pull that up. I don't have that
No
number in front of me right now.
Difficult now, then perhaps in a follow-up email or something, but if that's allowable. But just curious, just trying to get a gauge, that's all.
Yep.
I can kind of get a sense of it from these numbers on the screen, but I might be missing something, which is why I asked, and then I have no questions further after that.
Thank you, Board Member Lattimore. Just for clarification's sakes, so Aidan, when I was looking at the second slide, it was saying 71% of the buildings have been claimed. And I think so essentially I'm reading that as like 29 has not been claimed, 29%.
Yes. Yeah, my apologies. I forgot I had that number in there. Yeah, great. Yes, 71% of the total buildings covered under BERDO have been claimed. So
29% of what figure would it be that happened?
I'd say, you know, a rough number is about 5,500 buildings. So 29% of 5,500.
Okay. And is that the number that you'll have to do outreach to, or is it a smaller subset?
Yeah, that'll be the number that we are, you know, trying for door to door. Though it is, you know, there may be properties that have, you know, 10 or 20 buildings on them, and that really only counts as sort of one door that we're going to. So, you know, it's hard to speak to this with exact numbers.
Well, that's a pretty significant lift, but so it sounds like. But okay, thank you. I've had no other questions. I appreciate the responses.
Thank you, Board Member Lattimore. And just to put the numbers to words, you know, it's roughly about, you know, almost 1,600 buildings or parcels is what I'm hearing that, you know, the city is having to do door-to-door outreach to. If we're focused on that 5,500 properties or parcels or buildings, different languages across the board, but recognizing the nuances there. All right, I am going to turn it over to Board Member Nelson.
Thank you. Good luck with your continued outreach, and I have no questions.
All right. Thank you, Board Member Nelson. We are now switching gears to discuss, well, actually, I just want to check, are there any other further questions from the board? given that discussion that just occurred? Hearing none, we are now switching gears to discuss the updates on the Equitable Emissions Investment Fund. I'll hand it over to Diana.
Yes, I can provide updates on the fund. So two things, we've hosted 2 information sessions so far. So the fund was open, the application cycle was open on May 31st. We've held 2 information sessions, both were virtual. The June 11th meeting, we had 32 people who registered and I believe attended. And then the June 20th meeting, we had 20 people also attend that meeting. All of the slide decks, the Zoom recordings, and then the questions that were asked and their corresponding answers can be found on the BERDO, the Equitable Emissions Investment Fund website. The link is in the slide deck, so boston.gov/BERDO-fund. So there does seem to be a lot of interest in the fund, and a lot of folks had a lot of good questions. Clearly people are thinking about it. And I wanted to highlight a piece of feedback that we received, and I actually think Board Member Lattimore had flagged this when we first opened the application. There was a request for the board to extend the deadline for the application. So currently the deadline is July 12th. I can figure it here. So as I mentioned, the application opened on May 31st. The current deadline is July 12th to submit your proposal. There was a request to extend the deadline. And so I did want to highlight that for the board in case the board felt inclined to do that as well. And so for some context, here's where we are currently. So we're getting closer to July 12th. And then some other key deadlines that may be helpful to keep in mind. So July 1st, so this coming Monday, I believe, is the deadline for long-term hardship compliance plan applications. August 15th is the new reporting deadline for anybody who has an approved extension request. September 1st is the deadline for building portfolios and individual compliance schedules. And then October 1st is the deadline for short-term hardship compliance plan applications. So I did say I would bring this request to the board. In terms of a staff recommendation, we thought it would be fine to extend the deadline till the end of July. But anything past that, we'd be worried we're starting to come up against some other deadlines, and so felt like there would be a lot of demand on the board's attention to be reviewing applications to the fund, in addition to applications for long-term hardship and any other potential applications that come down the pike. So those are the main updates for the fund. If there are any questions, I am happy to answer those.
Thank you, Diana. I will now ask each board member if they have any questions or comments. We'll start with you, Councilor Coletta Zapata.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. So Diana, just a couple of things. Thank you for that timeline and that update. So just to confirm, there have been no applications thus far for the Equitable Emissions Investment Fund. Is that correct?
No submitted applications yet. Correct.
Okay. And on top of that, there has also been no submitted application for the long-term hardship compliance plan, correct?
That is correct.
All right. So I'll admit that I have some concerns about the fact that there haven't been any applications, and I'm sure the Environment Department is also concerned. We'll see if this is one of those last-minute submissions that are coming through by July 1st. And just a final confirmation I'm seeking from you. So I'm also hearing that in order to make the extension for the Equitable Emission Investment Fund, we will need a motion. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe the board would have to vote on it.
All right, and it sounds like we should probably do that at our next board meeting, correct?
Or you could do it now if the board member felt amenable to that. And we could give the update to folks. So if we did at the next board meeting, and the board decided to vote in favor, we could let folks know at the July 8th hearing or at the July 8th meeting. We could also do it now, and let potential applicants know now. So it just depends on when you would like to do that.
Okay, thank you. I'll wait for my other board members to comment, and then we'll see based on the conversation whether or not we should make a motion today. So there are no further questions or comments from me at this time. So I'll turn it over to Board Member Jacobs.
Sorry, I was looking for my mute button. No questions at the moment.
Thank you, Board Member Jacobs. Board Member Lattimore.
Thank you. I am not surprised to hear, and thank you for the report, but I'm not surprised to hear about the request for the extension. There are a lot of deadlines, kind of clustered together here. And, I appreciate the opportunity for the board also to get more training and also, have more time to look at all of the different, applications, et cetera, that come in and understand them. So I'm moving and recommend that we extend the deadline for the July 12th deadline to July 31st for the Equitable Emissions Fund application submissions. And so I make a motion to do that, if that's appropriate, acting chair.
Thank you. And just to confirm from the Environment Department, is it okay for us to take a motion in the middle of the questioning period? I want to make sure that I'm cognizant of Board Member Nelson's ability to comment first before taking a motion. So Diana, any thoughts on that?
Sure, we can hold the motion until after Board Member Nelson's comment period, and then
I'm in support of the motion.
All right, so that sounds like is that a second, Board Member Nelson?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion that I've heard is to extend the application deadline for the Equitable Emissions Investment Fund to July 30th. So I'm going to go down the line.
I believe it was July 31st.
31st, excuse me. I'm mixing up my months here. Thank you, Diana. So the motion is to extend the application period for the Equitable Emissions Investment Fund to July 31st. How do you vote to extend the application period? Councilor Coletta Zapata. I also say aye. How do you vote, Board Member Jacobs?
Aye.
Thank you, Board Member Jacobs. Board Member Lattimore.
Aye.
Thank you, Board Member Lattimore. Board Member Nelson.
Aye.
The ayes have it. We have passed a motion to extend the application period for the Equitable Emissions Investment Fund to July 31st. All right. Are there any other further questions or comments at this time? All right. We are now moving on to cover the administrative updates. Ziggy.
Hello. So Hassan has not yet been confirmed by the city council. His nomination has been referred to committee, but unfortunately it has to be rescheduled. It's being decided if his nomination in this committee meeting will be rescheduled or if his confirmation will move forward without hearing. As the regulations state that within 3 months of referral to the council, the nominee shall be presumed to have been approved and appointed to the review board. The 3-month mark for Hassan's nomination will be on July 3rd. And a reminder, our next meeting is scheduled for July 8th.
Thank you, Ziggy. We will now open the meeting to public comment. As a reminder, members of the public, to provide public comment, please raise your hand or type in the chat in the application via Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. Send your questions to staff via email at berdoreviewboard@boston.gov. Again, as a reminder, we are limiting questions to 3 minutes to ensure everyone has a chance to speak. We will also ask members of the public to introduce themselves and their neighborhood. We will now wait to give members of the public the opportunity to provide comments. Hearing no questions from the public, I am going to check if there are any further questions from the board in general.
Acting Chair, I do have a question about a comment on Hassan's appointment. So this was referred to the Planning, Development, and Transportation Committee. My understanding is that the chair is Sharon Durkin. And so I guess my clarifying question, it is a question after all, is that if he is not confirmed through the council by which date, the mayor is going to have to resubmit his name, and then we'll have to vote on it at some point after the July 8th meeting. Does that sound about right?
I can Acting Chair, if that's helpful, yeah. So the regulations state that if the nomination was appointed by the mayor, but not voted and approved by the council at the 3-month mark, that nomination will be considered approved and appointed by the Environment Department. And so I believe his nomination was referred to council on April 3rd, which then referred it to committee. And initially his nomination was going to be an agenda item for last week's committee, but it had to be rescheduled or had to be canceled. And so July 3rd would be the 3-month mark.
Okay, thank you so much. That's the clarity I was looking for. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you, Counselor. Are there any further questions or comments at this time? Okay, moving on to our next topic. Given that we are hoping to have more board members participate in the RDH training or training session number 2, I am going to motion to continue the RDH training session 2 to July 8th to increase that board member participation. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Board Member Lattimore. I will now lead us in a vote. How do you vote for the motion to continue the RDH training session 2 until the next meeting on July 8th? Councilor Coletta Zapata.
Aye.
I say in favor. Board Member Jacobs.
Aye.
Board Member Lattimore.
Aye.
And Board Member Nelson.
In favor?
The motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion to adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second.
Aye.
All right. On the motion to adjourn the meeting, board members in favor say aye, and board members opposed say nay. Well, excuse me, board members in favor say aye.
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 Board members opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion passes. This meeting is adjourned at 5:06 p.m. Thank you all.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night,
Night.
thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.